The communist USSR was absolutely devastated about all the destruction and killing that happened on its lands. It wanted to create a zone around the USSR to protect it from any future invasions. They created this by making the new, or liberated, countries around them communist. This led to and was a major part of the Cold War. This was the main U.S. policy against the spread of communism during the Cold War. It meant that wherever communism was spreading or taking over, the U.S. would send troops to help contain the spread. The domino theory was a theory that the U.S. had that one country falls into communism, the other ones will follow. The U.S. fought the North Vietnam because they feared that if South Vietnam fell, all of Southern Asia would fall. We lost the war, but not all of South Asia fell. This is the same reason we entered the Korean War.
The Marshall Plan was the American program to aid Europe, in which the United States gave economic support to help rebuild European economies after the end of World War II in order to prevent the spread of Soviet communism. This plan was in operation for 4 years, beginning in April 1948. The goals of the United States were to rebuild a war-devastated region, remove trade barriers, modernize industry, and make Europe prosperous again. The Truman Doctrine was an international relations policy set forth by the U.S. President Harry Truman in a speech on March 12, 1947, which stated that the U.S. would support Greece and Turkey with economic and military aid to prevent them from falling to the Soviet sphere. Historians often consider it the start of the Cold War and the start of the containment policy to stop Soviet expansion.
3, 2, 1, go.
The North Atlantic Treaty Organization was formed to prevent the Soviet Union from taking control of other European countries in 1949. NATO was created to defend the countries between North America and Eastern Europe. Belgium, Great Britain, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the United States, Canada, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, and Portugal were the original members of NATO. General Dwight D. Eisenhower was nominated and appointed as the first Supreme Allied Commander of NATO in 1950. NATO's primary purpose was to unify and strengthen the Western Allies' military response to a possible invasion of Western Europe by the Soviet Union and its Warsaw Pact allies. NATO relied partially on the threat of massive nuclear retaliation from the United States to counter the Warsaw Pact's much larger ground forces. The Warsaw Pact was a mutual defense treaty between 8 communist states of Central and Eastern Europe in existence during the Cold War. This was the military equivalent to the Council of Mutual Economic Assistance. The pact was created in direct response to the creation of NATO.
The Potsdam Conference was held from July 16, 1945 to August 2, 1945. The Potsdam Conference was considered to be the last of the World War II conferences. At Yalta and Tehran, the so-called Big Three attended: Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin. At Potsdam, America was represented by Harry Truman, the Soviet Union still by Stalin, and Britain first by Winston Churchill and then by Clement Attlee, who defeated Churchill in the post-war British election in 1945, which took place during the actual conference. The issues discussed were Allied control of defeated Germany and reparations for Germany.
The first decade included the beginning of the Cold War and the rule by Stalin. Stalin died in 1953 and was repudiated by the 20th Party Congress in 1956. This ended Stalinism, but what followed was periods of relative liberalism and conservative reaction. Khrushchev honestly believed in the superiority of communism and felt that it was only a matter of time before it would destroy the capitalist system once and for all. Despite being hailed as an expert on agriculture, Khrushchev miscalculated when in 1959 he became a huge enthusiast of corn and decided to introduce it to his country, most of which had unsuitable climate. Khrushchev deployed nuclear missiles in newly communist Cuba within easy striking distance of most major American population centers. Under him, the Berlin Wall was also erected.
Nuclear arms race was a competition for supremacy in nuclear warfare between the United States and the Soviet Union and their allies during the Cold War. Other countries produced nuclear weapons, but none were even close to the scale set by the US and Soviet Union. The space race was also technically a part of the arms race, but was seen as more of an intelligence race. Germany was split between two global blocs in the East and West, a period known as the Division of Germany. Germany was stripped of its war gains and lost territories in the East to Poland and the Soviet Union. Alongside Germany, the capital, Berlin, was also divided into 4 separate zones, one zone for each Britain, America, France, and the USSR. The zones basically turned into a separate East and West Germany that divided the country in two. During the Cold War, the U.S. homeland was very concerned with the threat of nuclear weapons detonating inside United States soil, and the threat of nuclear fallout causing a new and grim future for ordinary citizens. Many reassuring videos were aired on national TV telling people to duck and cover or use other methods of shielding themselves from the blast, if there is an actual detonation. Unfortunately, all of these methods were completely to calm down people and give them a sense of false security in case American soil is actually attacked.
In Cuba, there was a civil war and Castro took over. The U.S. tried to overthrow him in the Bay of Pigs, which failed miserably. Castro got scared that the U.S. were going to overthrow him, so he allied with the USSR, who sent nuclear arms to the island. The U.S. got worried with all these short and intermediate range missiles so close. After much debating and negotiations, the missiles were removed.